Welcome to another episode of the Your Longevity Blueprint podcast. Today, my guest is Thomas Pennel, who's an account executive who works in the supplement and nutrition space for a company called Orthomolecular Products. After receiving a degree in integrated biology from the University of Illinois, a little health scare with his now fiance gave him his first interaction with functional medicine. After seeing firsthand how functional medicine impacted her life, this drove him to seek out professional nutrition companies for the opportunity to work with providers and help shape patient care. He's worked with over 1,000 clinics across the Midwest. Of course, we're his favorite clinic. No, I'm kidding. Which has included a bunch of practitioners, clinics, and pharmacies. He's previously worked with practices in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania, and now resides in Iowa, where he currently works with over 400 active practices. He uses this experience to help providers consult and bring functional medicine to their patients with a strong focus on improving clinical outcomes. So welcome to the show again, Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. I appreciate it. We were just laughing right before this. I think this is going to end up being a potentially fourth, fifth, and sixth episode here. So
a lot. Yeah, I've brought you on the show
exciting.
A lot, which is a compliment to you. Yeah. And the quality of those episodes.
Yeah. It's fun. I have fun with this. Yeah.
So taking a break from launching new episodes this summer, I thought about kind of what I get asked often. And that really is what supplement can help XYZ. And I could do a episode on supplements for anxiety, supplements for headache, supplements for fatigue, whatnot. And we've kind of sprinkled that in through other episodes with different commercials for products and whatnot. But today I think just want to go through products. And so I always have to share a little disclaimer here that I always say there's no pill, potion, or powder that can replace lifestyle changes, right? Those are foundational, but supplements can help build on that, right? So that we're not nutritionally deficient. And as we've mentioned in past episodes, the important thing about products is we need to choose high quality ones, right? You need the correct dose for those to work, which we call the therapeutic dose. And it's possible if you've tried supplements in the past without good results, maybe they weren't of high enough quality or high enough potency, right? So to learn more about why you need to supplement, check out past episodes I've had. So very long time ago, very early on, episodes 5 and 6, I interviewed Thomas Houle on supplement myths. And then episodes 108 and 109, I interviewed you. That was titled What More You Need to Know About the Supplement Industry, where we kind of built on that latter episode. So I've asked you again, obviously, to join me today. And I think you're the only guest I've had on. This is our third interview, but multiple episodes because we've divided all of those into, fourth. I don't know, a lot. You've been here a lot. So I arranged my thoughts kind of alphabetically, and I'll just tell the audience we're kind of winging this, and so we're kind of saying here goes nothing. Hopefully,
it's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Helpful for the audience. Always consult with your medical provider before taking supplements, especially if you're on certain medications. But we're going to kind of go A through Z. And when I was deciding how to do this, I thought, do I use ingredient names or do I use supplement names since we have different blends? And so I think the easiest thing to do here is to do both. So if you're a current patient of ours, if you've listened to the podcast, a lot of these names are going to sound familiar, and you can always find more information and product info sheets at yourlongevityblueprint.com. But for now, we're just going to start with A, and we'll see how long this takes us to go through Z, and we'll get through a bunch of products. So I think I will talk a little bit about these products, and then I'll have Thomas chime in as far as what else he wants to add. So we'll start with A. So we'll start with a product called Adrenal Calm, which is one of my favorite products. If you've listened to the show, we have commercials for this product. It contains a unique blend of botanicals and nutrients that support the stress response, particularly promoting cortisol balance. It has these adaptogenic herbs essentially, and it has nutrients to help counteract the effects of daily stress and support healthy energy levels. And it has phosphatidylserine and L-theanine, which both help dampen cortisol, dampen adrenaline, reduce that half-life of that kind of fight or flight response. So I use this many times in the afternoons. If I've had a stressful workday, I many times take it before podcast interviews and before public speaking. It can be taken on a daily basis. Maybe you need to take it before you pick up your kids from school. If you just can't sleep at night, there are a lot of applications for that product. So I really like this product. It's called Adrenal Calm. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, because the main reason that we're talking about this in the first place is there's a pre-wired system in all of our bodies that is an evolutionary. At one point, it was a really cool advantage to be able to have this stress response to get away from things that are going to stress us and cause problems, right? And I'm talking about seeing bears and wolves in the forest, which thankfully, knock on wood, we don't do very often anymore, right?
Right.
But our body still has that same exact response to everyday things. You said picking up your kids. You said recording podcast episodes. The unfortunate thing is, it's kind of cool we get to do this stuff now, but the unfortunate thing is that our bodies still react the same way to that they would if we literally were seeing seeing a bear standing in front of us, right?
Sure. It's
And
just
so these
different.
herbs,
Yep.
So these herbs, the L-theanine, the phosphatidylserine, all of these help kind of calm that system down so we can function more optimally in these stressful environments. And who's not stressed, right? I'm stressed, you're stressed, everyone's stressed, right? Yeah.
I love that. I love that product. Okay. So then
Yep.
on the contrary, we have another product that's still supporting the adrenals, which is more stimulating, which is called Adrenal Drive. So this also has similar adaptogenic herbs, and we could kind of go through these. You probably know these ingredients more than I do, but it has rhodiola and luthracoccus and schizandra. I never know how to pronounce these, and licorice. And the benefit of this product is it has this adrenal concentrate. So this is bovine, I believe, from a cow. So it actually has the adrenal gland from a cow to give you cortisol from a cow, which sounds weird, but to give you that energy. So if on a cortisol, a saliva cortisol stress test, you came back very low, you may need a little boost, even just in the short term with a product like this. If you're wired and anxious, this is not the product for you. You need Adrenal Calm, not Adrenal Drive. But if you're, chronic fatigue syndrome, just very tired, if you've crashed and burned, this can help kind of revive the adrenals. So this one is a little different. This is called Adrenal Drive.
Yeah. So if you're looking at the website and you're trying to differentiate between, hey, which product is good for me because I'm stressed, but I'm not sure which kind of side of the fence I fit on, right? The way that I always explain to practitioners is we have stressed and wired and we have stressed and tired. Both patients, everyone is listening, everyone's still stressed, right? But the difference is, are we wired? Are we having a hard time falling asleep? Are we awake? Are we going? Are we moving? We might even feel pretty good if we're stressed and wired because we get up and we get our stuff done, right? But the problem is it's me most days, right? I mean, I want a little bit of that, but what we have here is the difference between drive and calm, and we need that calm to counterbalance if we are we need the drive if we're doing the stressed and tired. See, it's very confusing. Even I get them mixed up a little bit, but calm and drive,
you need the calming one. If you're tired, you need the more stimulating, the drive one, which makes total sense. And if you feel like, well, I'm both, I've had some patients say, well, Monday I'm this and Saturday I'm this and whatnot. We have a midway product called Herbal Adrenal Complex. So that has the herbs that are in both of those other products, but it doesn't have specifically the calming L-theanine or phosphatidylserine or the stimulating, adrenal bovine concentrate. It just has the herbs. So that's a very safe, I say, entryway product for patients to take if they just want to start taking something. And then you certainly can, if you feel like that's not enough, or we've done a test on you so we know if you're high or low, then we can personalize that approach and give you the calm or the drive. Perfect. Okay. We're still on A's here. We got a lot of A's. So let's go to aloe.
Sure.
So you guys carry, which we have on our shelf, aloe pills, which are great for constipation. Aloe is also very soothing to the gastric membrane. So it can be used for heartburn, reflux. It's in a lot of our gut healing protocol products. But we have just it individually for patients who have constipation. I will say with aloe, you don't want to overdo it. Your body can come a little dependent on it. For some patients, it can cause GI spasms, but for some patients, it's very helpful. Like, especially if you've traveled and you're just kind of backed up, a constipated aloe can help get things cleared out. Do you want to comment on anything else with aloe?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, you definitely don't want to overdo it. This is a product if you get occasionally backed up, right? If we're saying every now and then, whether it be stress or diet changes, or I'm traveling, this is a big one I hear. I know that stressor is going to make me just a little backed up, right? There's two compounds in that aloe plant, barbaloin and isobarbaloin, that cause mucus to go into our GI tract, help draw water into the stool to soften it up a little bit. Kind of cheesy and gross analogy I use. It's like watering up or lubricating the water slide before someone goes down it, right? Don't need to do that every day, right? If we're saying, hey, I'm an everyday constipation person, well, we can work our way back up and say, okay, what does exercise look like? Are we drinking enough water? How much fiber do we have in our diet? So this is not an everyday option, but it's a good thing to have. I keep one in my medicine cabinet at home it
just
happens,
in case. Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, let's go on to alpha lipoic acid. So alpha lipoic acid is a strong antioxidant. Many times, not many, I would say extremely commonly on a nutritional evaluation, I see patients have very low alpha lipoic acid levels. It's a rarity that anyone is sufficient in this nutrient. So many people need to be taking this. It also helps with glutathione recycling, to my understanding. It's great for things like neuropathy. I'll let you kind of expand on the benefits, but you can take alpha lipoic acid individually. It's also in mitochondrial complex. It's kind of in some of our other products. I think it's in the Berberine product, which we'll get to in the bees as well. The thing with ALA is it can lower blood glucose. So most people do just fine, but typically I'll start them on a lower dose, 300 milligrams once or twice a day. Sometimes we have to work up to 600 milligrams once or twice a day. But when you get into the higher dosages, especially if you're on other agents to lower blood glucose, you just want to make sure you monitor for hypoglycemia symptoms. That's the big, I guess, caveat or concern with it. But I would say it's a much needed antioxidant. So tell us more about alpha lipoic acid.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say this again when we get to bees in a second here with berberine, but alpha lipoic acid does a lot of things, right? And main function, if we're talking from an antioxidant perspective, which we do with mitochondrial complex, it's a really good antioxidant. And antioxidants, as a reminder, the reason we want to take those is just our existence, the way we are, stuff we put in our body and our environment. We get a lot of what's called oxidative stress, right? And that oxidative stress can be damaging. It increases our aging and slows down our detoxification. And so I always say, if we have oxidative stress, we need antioxidants. They deoxidize the oxidative stress, right? Alpha lipoic acid, not only can it go around and pick up oxidative stress by itself, but it also recharges our other antioxidants. And so it's a great
that's what I was meaning by glutathione. It recharges glutathione, to my understanding.
Yeah, so it's a great add-on for a product like mitochondrial complex, but it's also great if you're just looking for general antioxidant support. Like you said, a lot of patients very deficient. Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Let's go on to Advanced Yeast Complex. So this is a kind of proprietary blend of botanicals that can help to treat bacteria and yeast overgrowth, even SIBO. So I'll and that's just what the name that we call this product, how we sell it on our website. So it includes, if I remember right, biotin, oregano, pau d'arco, sodium capryllate, berberine, which we just mentioned, rosemary, and cinnamon. So I really like this product. And I know if you're purchasing this product online, you might say, well, how do I take this? I mean, we have individual protocols for patients based on their stool test results, whatnot, as far as tapering the amount of this product up over a month and then tapering it back down. Because research really shows to kill off pathogens naturally, many times it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks at least. So minimum, yes, so you can certainly consult with your provider. Hopefully that's us on how to take this sort of product, but it can be very helpful, especially when patients just don't want to take antibiotics for those organisms, whatnot. So tell us more about the ingredients in Advanced Yeast Complex and kind of how it works.
Yeah, when we're talking especially yeast, we're usually referring to something called candida, right? And some of you who are listening to this have probably heard of that. Candida can exist in this little bacterial form, these nice little spheres that sit in our GI tract and other parts of our body that don't really cause a problem for the most part, right? They're just there. It's likely I have some in my body right now. If they're just there, they're not really doing a whole lot. But the problem is given the right environment, given the right access to nutrients, the right space, the right time, the right place, basically, what happens is they actually turn into a fungal form. Right? They turn into this yeast infection that can cause a problem. And so they go from these nice little circle cells in what's called the hyphae form, and that hyphal form causes a problem. That's when they start locking themselves in what's called a biofilm. So when they get together in big groups, they create this biofilm and they become hard to treat. And that's why we say it can take weeks and weeks, potentially even months for patients to resolve yeast infections. We talk about chronic yeast infections. That's why, is they lock themselves in and they don't really let themselves get touched by whatever it may be, right? And so the cool thing about this product is it actually slows down that conversion. So it stops the bacteria that are in there from converting over to that hyphae form, that yeast form, but then also has some ingredients in it that are going to go and break up those biofilms and actually go after the infection itself. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch.
Yeah. And this product, we call it the Advanced Yeast Complex, but it also has botanicals that treat bacteria too, just to point that out. And many times we'll combine this in our bacteria yeast cleanse protocol with a product called BioClear, which we'll probably get to here in the bees. So I'll pause on that. But,
there's a lot coming.
But that's Advanced Yeast Complex. Okay. This is not a supplement, but I actually had put this on the list real quickly, and I'm just going to briefly mention we had some pretty poor air quality here recently with forest fires.
Yes,
and so,
we did. Yes.
Under the A's, I had written in my notes to talk about Air Doctor, or any sort of air purification system. And so, I mean, even living in Iowa, we have, I guess you'd call them industrial emissions, right, from factories and plants and whatnot. Yes, we have smoke from forest fires. There's pesticides and herbicides in the air outside, right? So in where you're spending a lot of your time indoors, many times it's actually more toxic than outdoors. And so at our clinic, and at our home, we use Air Doctors, and these filters are like 100 times more effective than any sort of ordinary purifier you may have at home. They can capture smoke, viruses, bacteria, pollen, mold, and dust mites. And so if you're not filtering your air, I will say you need to be. It's good to have something like a carbon gas trap VOC filter. I don't even understand all of the technology of the filters, but you want to make sure they remove volatile organic compounds, things like formaldehyde. So know the Air Doctor is just one great company. Austin Air is another company. If you have questions, let us know. We always have a code on our website for purchasing those, but that was just under the A's. So I wanted to mention that.
I love it. Great. Yeah.
Let's move on to ashwagandha, which I love. So this is also known as Withania somnifera, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's
Nice.
it's been used in Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years. It can be very calming. It's one of these adaptogenic herbs that you can take even individually. So if this is in those adrenal products we mentioned previously, but if patients are nervous to take a blend, some of my patients have a lot of sensitivities and they're just nervous, they're going to react to something. Many times I'll just start them with one ingredient, like just ashwagandha, and then work them up to a stronger product. Do you have any other notes on ashwagandha?
Yeah, like we'll say with L-theanine, very benign, very safe, very calming, right? If people are concerned and say, hey, maybe I don't know where I fit on that adrenal calm, adrenal drive side of the fence, we can start with ashwagandha. It's just a standalone herb. Absolutely. Very safe, very benign, helps build resiliency to that stress response. Our body has a more healthy response when we get stressed. Very simple. Yeah.
I will say I've noted that I've seen this in a lot of hair loss products. A lot of patients, post-COVID have had a lot of hair thinning because they get stuck in that telogen effluvium, whatnot. Ashwagandha helps you get out of that stress response. So therefore it can really help with stress and hair loss. So what is the other thing I was going to say about ashwagandha? Oh, one contraindication. Some patients who have a lot of seasonal allergies could potentially react to this or to any botanicals. But also if you're trying to conceive or pregnant, I would not take this. It can at higher doses stimulate uterine contraction. So just be careful if you're in that boat. Okay, so we're 17 minutes in and we're going on to B here.
I say we made it out of the A's. Yeah. Buckle in, everybody. We're moving.
So let's go on to B. So the first product I had written down was betaine and pepsin. So this, a lot of patients think of this as a digestive enzyme, but this is actually different. This is replacing hydrochloric acid.
Stomach acid, yeah.
Yes. And so, which is specifically helpful for patients who cannot break down protein. A lot of patients just say, I'll have a steak and it just sits there. It's just not digesting, not breaking down. And it's not that a separate digestive, enzyme blend product won't help, but these patients many times need the hydrochloric acid to break down the protein. And we can see that on functional medicine stool tests as well. We'll see they're literally pooping out their protein's high. And then we say, hey, you need to take some of this hydrochloric acid. So that is a great product. I will say many times, and the pepsin is an enzyme, but the betaine hydrochloride is more acid. So many times I'll have patients who just have unexplained bloating, who've changed their diet. We've kind of already had them on a gut healing protocol. If they're not improving, we'll have them do a, what do we call it? HDL challenge, where they take 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 capsules with protein-rich meals, not with a small snack, not with an apple, but with a larger meal, and see if that elicits any heartburn, any warmth sensation, right? If not, they're probably very low on this. And so I've had patients take even 10 or 15 capsules. That's not the average, but some patients have to work up a very high dose of this to elicit any of those symptoms. And that's telling me they're very deficient on this. This is helpful for patients with bad breath, again, with constipation. Acid will kill off bacteria also. We clean with acid, right? So you want to have a good amount of acid in your stomach to kill off pathogens, right, from your food, whatnot. So if patients, let's say they require 5 or 6 capsules with a meal to elicit that warmth, well, eventually fewer capsules is going to elicit that warmth. So then they can wean down to 4 and then 3 and then 2 and 1 and hopefully get off of this. But it can be a very helpful product. I just tell patients, if you're having heartburn, you may be high on stomach acid, you may be low on the acid. So if you take it and your symptoms are, profusely worse, this is not the product for you. Stop taking it. You don't need more acid, but some of those patients really are low and need it. Any comments on this product?
Yeah. Another one I would add is if you've been on a PPI for a while and you're real nervous about getting off one, this is a great opportunity to work with your provider. Hopefully Dr. Gray, right? But work with work with someone knowledgeable in your area, talk to your pharmacist, whatever it may be, and talk about using betaine and pepsin as a way to help supplement some additional, like Dr. Gray was talking about, acids, and get your stomach more regular so it starts naturally producing its own levels, because we don't need to be stuck on PPIs forever, right?
No,
That's something, a big misconception. Yeah.
And what those do is they shut off your proton pumps. So you're literally not making any acid. And so you never want to abruptly stop one of those either, or all those acid pumps are going to turn back on. You want to very slowly wean down while supporting, gut health with other nutraceutical products, slowly wean down on that with guidance of a
and that's no
provider.
fun. If you're taking a PPI, that's no fun, right? You're not digesting things very well, and that you definitely need it if you're going to eat a meal, and it becomes this thing that becomes kind of habit, and it's hard to get off. And I totally understand that. So definitely reach out to Dr. Gray, reach out to someone in your area if you don't have access, and just that's a great opportunity to talk about that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Agreed. Okay. Let's go on to B vitamins. So B vitamins are used for lots of things in our body. Many patients know they're great for headaches, they're good for energy. They literally help convert your food into cellular energy, and we don't get a lot of them from our diets. And many times we're on medications that deplete them, things like metformin, birth control drugs, even stress, whatnot. So we can become vitamin B deficient, and then our Krebs cycle, right? This biochemical pathway responsible for maintaining energy production can't work as well. So a low B vitamin symptoms can be, again, the fatigue, the weakness, poor mood, headaches, even PMS. And so supplementing with B vitamins can be very helpful for these situations. I will say that I recommend patients always avoid the cyanocobalamin form so that would be B12, and then folic acid, the synthetic B9, as many bodies can't convert these vitamins to the active form. So opt for methyl or hydroxycobalamin for B12, and then methylfolate or even folinic acid for B9. Especially if you have MTHFR or MTR genetic variants. And then we have sublingual B vitamins, and then we also have capsule products as well on our website. So tell me more about bees.
Yeah, I just got really excited. I don't know if you saw, I know people are probably listening, at home or in their car or whatever, but I got really excited when you say B vitamins, because these are huge, right? We use these. There's so many interlinked cycles with B vitamins in your body, whether it be neurotransmitters. So actually making things that help us feel mentally, emotionally sound, right? Whether it be liver detoxification, so actually able to process toxins that get in and out of our body. Everything from, we could make a long list of things that B vitamins are used for. You probably have tons of stories where we do a B12 injection and someone comes back and say, yep, I've got a lot more energy, right? So a lot of you listening are probably really B vitamin deficient without even realizing it. Right. And so if you're curious, if you're saying, hey, I don't know if I have a genetic SNP, or I don't know what form my supplement is in, or I don't know what I'm picking up at the pharmacy, or whatever it may be, just the easiest way to do it is just get the Year Longevity Blueprint brand, right? Because the products, the raw materials that we put in there are the forms that Dr. Gray are talking about that are already methylated. They're already basically processed. So as soon as they go in your body, they are ready to do work right now. They can get to work and actually help you start feeling better pretty quickly.
Totally agreed. And these are safe for pregnancy. Many times I'll use B vitamins if patients are having nausea through pregnancy as well. So these are very safe. What else was I going to say? Occasionally B vitamins can be stimulating. So I would say if you've never taken one before, this is a great swap for pop or sugar, something else that you were, trying to use for energy, substitute instead of B vitamins. But if you take them and you feel a little jittery, a little wired, we could reduce the dose. That may get better in time, but certainly don't take them at night. Take them in the morning because they can help with energy. And we may need to reduce the dose if you feel like this is rare, but for some patients, they can be pretty stimulating, pretty helpful.
Okay. Potentially. It's like you said, very rare, but this is something, if you just kind of don't feel right, or you haven't felt like you have previously, and you're kind of wondering why, this is something that can easily be added on. Not particularly expensive, that can start to get a lot of these cycles that are they're happening a million times a second all over your body. There's just something that your body needs. And if it doesn't have good access to, it's not going to be able to perform, right? Your body's just not going to be able to do these cycles. So super, super, super important.
I agree. If patients don't tolerate them orally too, there's a good chance they may tolerate an injection or even IV forms. So for some patients,
we have a lot of options. We have a lot of options for B vitamins. Get your B vitamins, everyone.
Yay. Okay, let's go on to, I just have a few comments on bone broth. So bone broth is excellent, especially when patients just need to rest their gut, when they have lots of food sensitivities and they don't know what to eat and they just need a short-term little break. Bone broth can be great. We carry different bone broth protein powders here. Bone broth is loaded with amino acids, specifically glutamine, which is the most important non-essential amino acid for the gut to kind of heal the leaky gut. So that's something that most people, unless you have a strong histamine intolerance, can tolerate fairly well. So that's just something that's easy to supplement. You can either get a protein powder here, or even at the grocery store, you can purchase various bone broth options. So I am a fan of that. Patients ask me about that all the time. And I say, oh yes, I'm a fan. I don't know if you have any comments on bone broth, but.
Bone broth for everyone. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's go on to berberine. Okay, so we mentioned this a little bit before, but berberine is very important for insulin resistance, and which can lead to weight gain, right? And a lot of my patients want to lose weight, so berberine is one strategy to help. Berberine also is, well, I will say insulin resistance can lead to things like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's. So therefore, berberine can help with all of the above.
Oh, yeah.
I had Sean Wells on, who is a biohacker. He's known as the ingredientologist. He was on, I should look up the episode, I didn't before this, but he was on the podcast early in season 1, and he talked about his experience with berberine, where he wore a continuous glucose monitor. And he normally eats very clean, but he had something like 3 Pop-Tarts and 2 Oreos, right? And he watched his glucose spike on his CGM. Then he waited for a week washout period, went back to eating really clean, came back, took a gram of berberine, had the same 3 Pop-Tarts, 2 Oreos, right? And his blood glucose spiked like half as high. I don't remember the numbers. You can listen to the episode if you want to know. But case in point, berberine minimized the blood sugar spike. So when I have more carbs for dinner, or my son's birthday, when I had a gluten-free cake, right, I have a berberine and I pop that, it's in my pocket, pop it in my mouth when I know I'm not eating as clean as I could be.
Yeah.
So berberine, we talked a little bit before, it's in the Advanced Yeast Complex because it has the antibacterial, antifungal capabilities, but it also is great for heart health, for healthy cholesterol and glucose levels. And then our berberine product has a little bit of that alpha lipoic acid we mentioned as well. So berberine, I think, is heavily underused. I think it's something that could strongly help everyone. So
yeah,
comments on that? Yeah.
We could probably do I'm not kidding. We could
probably do an entire
episode just on berberine. Yeah. There's probably, I could easily rattle off 5 or 6 things that berberine does right now, and you hit the main ones pretty quickly, right? In fact, our VP of science. Our VP of science, Dr. Tom Williams, who's been with our company almost since the beginning and helps us formulate products. One of his absolute favorite raw materials, period, especially when we talk about cardiovascular function, is berberine, because it does so many things. It has a similar mechanism of action to metformin. It helps with blood sugar. It hits, I'd call it kind of the shotgun blast for cardiometabolic approaches. So if we're having just generalized insulin sensitivity, we're even saying it's super safe to use. So even if we're saying, hey, maybe I've gained a couple pounds, or I'm concerned that maybe I'm pre-diabetic or whatever it may be, this is an option that we can use as a way to help start to kind of get us on the right path. Antimicrobial, we just talked about with Advanced Yeast Complex. It comes up again in other protocols for bacteria, right? And so this is a super, super, super important raw material. It's something I take our ortho label version, but yeah, this is something that, and I don't have, pre-diabetes, diabetes, or anything like that, but this is something that is super, super, super important.
So I will say, all those things you just said made me want to mention some other things. So So
Go ahead,
thank you for saying that it's similar to metformin. So I tell patients it's equally as effective as metformin. I mean, there's trials have shown a gram of metformin, which is a cheap script, but can come with side effects like GI distress, diarrhea. Some of my patients just don't tolerate
B vitamin blockage.
Yes, and metformin causes, B vitamin loss. Or patients could take berberine, which rarely do patients not tolerate it. But normally that's much better tolerated than the metformin. So if I have patients who come in and their glucose is in that pre-diabetes range, a lot of my patients are, 90s, 100s, 110, right? Over 100 is
creeping up a little bit.
Range. But even in the 90s, if they've been in the 90s for a long time, we know they have some insulin resistance. I don't want them eventually getting into the hundreds, right? I'll offer them berberine, which most of them take, over the metformin, right? Because we do want to keep that glucose down. We want to fix that ahead of time before things get worse. What else was I going to say about berberine?
Most cardiometabolic protocols and a lot of cardiovascular protocols that I talk about with those 400 plus offices that you had mentioned earlier, a lot of them start with berberine. They start with talking about berberine as a baseline and then adding on top of that, in addition to fish oil. Berberine and fish oil is kind of a 1-2, and I know we'll get to that as a really great option if someone's got cardiometabolic issues. Absolutely.
Yes, when we eventually get to the Fs, we'll talk about fish oil. But
we'll get there. Yeah.
But back to berberine. It can be taken, to be clear, it can be taken with metformin. I mean, it can be taken. I wouldn't, For patients who are on semaglutide, like other strong injections, I typically don't mix. But if patients are electing for, metformin or just other supplement options, those can be combined with berberine for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to C. So this
We
is
made
one of
it.
my, yeah, we're on to C. I want to talk about choline. So we have a choline complex here, and I want to talk a little bit about phospholipids just to explain this to the audience. So phospholipids are part of our cell membranes. So, and I don't know, you could probably explain this better, but one thing that I have been told in the past, at least, is many of my patients who are chronically ill, who have Lyme disease, mold toxicity, whatnot, chronic fatigue syndrome, they get stuck in this thing called the cell danger response, where their cells kind of lock up. So each of our cells, it's hard without me drawing this out, right, is surrounded by a bilayer. So 2 layers of these fats, these phospholipids, right, lining your cells. And those lipids, those membranes kind of allow nutrients in and toxins out. They allow your cells to function appropriately. And so if for some reason, like mold toxicity, chronic Lyme disease, whatnot, you have this cell danger response and those phospholipids lock up, your cells aren't going to work well. You're not going to get nutrients in and toxins out. And so some patients, maybe you even told me this at one point, need this sort of oil change or this lipid replacement, this lipid change. And so we can supplement with phospholipids. They can come in kind of an oily, we have one option here, which is kind of an oily substance that you can take sublingually. You have to refrigerate that. That has soy in it, and some of my patients really want to avoid soy. So instead, we have a powder form, which we call phospholipid complex, and I'll let you explain what's all in there. But essentially, this is a very high dose blend of phospholipids that I put in my smoothie. So I take a little scoop, put it in my smoothie in the morning to help with brain function, help my cells function better.
Yeah. And
it almost makes the smoothie taste creamy, like there's an avocado in there. Like it tastes good. I like it. And it's an easy way to up your choline intake. A lot of people are just low in general on choline. We get some from eggs, but taking phosphocholine in a supplement, I think, is also something that's underutilized. So tell us more about choline and why we need it, Tom.
Yeah. So the cell danger response that you're referencing, it's a lot of work that was pioneered by a doctor named Dr. Robert Navio, who started doing this work about 10, 15 years ago. And he actually wrote the foreword for a really great book called Toxic by Neil Nathan. I don't know if you've read that one.
Oh, I haven't. It's right back there. Yep.
Yeah, it's on my bookshelf too. I was just looking at it. And so this response is essentially saying that, our cells, they have this kind of alert mechanism that actually comes from the mitochondria, right? And so what happens is when there is some sort of cellular attack, there's some sort of thing that stresses the cells, whether it be Lyme disease, whether it be mold exposure, whether it be something that gets into our body that is not really going anywhere, but it's releasing these things into our body that are going to cause our cells to kind of freak out, if you want to think about it
trauma.
that way. Yeah. Cellular trauma is essentially what it is that these cells, they have this what's called cell danger response, CDR, where when those toxins, when those components get to the cells, they shut down. It's like a bank that's pressed that alarm button and all the doors go down and the big, like in the movies where the big metal doors come down and they get locked in until the police come type of thing, right? Same thing happens in our cells, but our cells aren't very good at turning it off. There's no way to turn that signal off, right? So once they become damaged, once they have this cellular trauma, they're not really able to use nutrients or communicate with one another. That phospholipid membrane, if you want to think about the outer circle of that cell, it becomes really rigid. It doesn't really allow for things to get in, because basically we put these channels in that membrane that allow for nutrients to get in and out. If they're not there, that's not going to happen. And they can't get there if the cell's in the cell danger response. So what we're doing, I like the analogy, the oil change, was saying, hey, your cells, now that we have some sort of chronic biotoxin illness, right, that's causing this damage to the cell, if we have that, we need to replace the damaged phospholipids and bring in new phospholipids, right? So we need to bring in fresh, clean phospholipids to directly replace them. So phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylnositol, phosphatidylanalamine, it's a blend in that product. It makes up a vast majority of the phospholipids that are naturally found on the surface or as a part of the cell membranes, right? In addition to that, choline's a great neurotransmitter, helps with memory formation. There's a lot of other benefits to taking that product, right? And so who is this good for? If someone's just kind of been, hey, I don't feel right, we'll talk about that a lot with some of these products, but if I was just like, hey, I'm just sluggish, not feeling right, maybe we've suspected that there's some sort of mold exposure or suspected that there's potentially Lyme disease involved or some sort of other chronic stress or biotoxin illness is kind of the term that we use. If we think that's the case, it could be because our cells are under attack and they've started to kind of lock up a little bit. They don't die, right? Because obviously that would be a huge problem, but they kind of lock up and they're not functioning at 100%. They're about like 60, 70% of where they should be. We can add phosphatidylcholine complex, a phospholipid complex on top as a way to just kind of open up those cells a little bit so the body can start healing.
Love it. You explain it way better than I did. And this is soy free for patients who
Yes.
are concerned about that.
From
So
sunflower lecithin, which is fantastic. So very, very few allergies to sunflower.
awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go on to CalMag. I hesitated even putting this in because I'm just not a huge fan of calcium. Like, and I think that's because I feel like the menopausal women have been over calcified, right? They go to their doctor, they stop cycling, they get their bone density, they have a little bone loss, and the only thing the doctor puts them on is calcium, which they should more be focusing on other things, which we'll get to, like vitamin D and K2 and magnesium and whatnot. But calcium is important. I will say when I take my patients off dairy, the first thing they ask is, well, I'm not going to get enough calcium in my diet. And I say, oh, yes, you can. Do you eat broccoli? Do you eat leafy greens? Like there are other sources of calcium. It's not just, milk and dairy products. But even
surprise to everyone listening, the Got Milk campaign, turns out that was super, super, super effective. I remember that when I was growing up.
Oh, I do too.
If you don't drink milk, you're
mustache.
if you don't drink milk, you're gonna have terrible bone density. You're gonna grow up with these weak, brittle bones. That's not true. If you actually look up gram per gram where you find calcium in your diet, the milk is actually much lower on that list than you realize. You can eat spinach and green leafy everything, and you're gonna get a lot more calcium gram per gram. Absolutely.
Totally true. And I don't have the study, but I know it exists and I could find it if any of the listeners would like. Studies have actually shown those who drink more milk, that actually has an adverse reaction on their bones. It's the opposite of what we were, kind of ingrained via, media growing up. Yep.
Yeah. And I work with a lot of pharmacies. I work with pharmacies all across state here. I work with them all across the Midwest. And oftentimes when we end up talking about a calcium supplement in the pharmacy space with pharmacists, that is one of the top recommendations that someone gets sent to if they're having bone issues or whether it be menopause is say, the patients don't know what they're looking for. They'll walk in and say, and this could be some of the listeners, right? Is that I was told to go pick up a calcium supplement. I need a calcium supplement. And maybe they have a dose that someone has recommended.
Usually 1,000 milligrams. They're told to take 1,000 milligrams. Yep.
Full gram. Then it's usually not much of a conversation beyond that. And we'll kind of circle back to this, I think, when we get to vitamin K. But there's a lot more to that we can talk about. So yeah, I'm with you on the calcium. Important, but in right circumstances. Yeah.
So I think a lot of women, unfortunately, they're trying to do the right thing. They go, to whatever, they go to local drug store, grocery store, and they pick up a calcium product, and it's usually loaded with calcium carbonate, which is like chalk on a chalkboard. It's just not healthy. It's good for heartburn. Calcium carbonate can be good for heartburn. But a lot of those products are also loaded with aluminum. If you read the package insert, they have nasty additives. So I think maybe here we should talk about the concept, which we have elaborated on with past podcasts, of the amino acid chelated minerals. So I am okay if a patient takes some calcium, granted they don't need as much as they probably think they do, as long as it's in the right form and it's taken with magnesium and K2 and vitamin D3, which again, we're going to get to. So amino acid chelated minerals, which would even include iron and zinc and all these minerals, are best absorbed by the body when they're in the form of what's called an amino acid chelate. And so I just tell patients, chelate means bound. It's a synonym for bound, right? You want that mineral, that calcium, for instance, to be bound to an amino acid because your gut lining loves amino acids. It's going to help that calcium get absorbed into the bloodstream. Otherwise, a lot of minerals like calcium carbonate that just you would take, whatnot, or an iron over the counter, may get just stuck in your gut. Even some magnesium products, like the powders that are available, just stay in the gut, which are great from a constipation standpoint. They can help with, help relax the bowel and facilitate bowel movement in the morning. The magnesium can, but that's not going to help your bones. So if the purpose of taking calcium is to help with bones, I encourage patients to take an amino acid chelated version of calcium, and that's what we sell. So we have plain calcium here, although we rarely sell it. We more like to advocate for a combination of calcium and magnesium. So, and calcium is important for metabolism of carbohydrates. It's great for bones and for electrical nerve conductivity, muscle cramping, whatnot. It is important. I don't want to undermine it. I just feel like it's been overprescribed. The wrong form has been. So what are your thoughts on calcium?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And I know you talk about this quite a bit. I know you love your magnesium, but when we talk about any mineral, right? If we're talking about magnesium or calcium or even iron or whatever it may be from a dietary supplement standpoint, if you're taking one of those products from wherever, it's oftentimes that's going to be in the form of something called a mineral salt. Because you can't just put pure magnesium or you can't just put pure calcium into a product. You have to attach it to something. It needs a buddy as it's going through your gut so it can
That's
actually
good.
get
Yeah.
absorbed. Yeah. And so most oftentimes companies will use, and I know I talked about this on the first couple episodes we did, so those are always good to go back and listen to, but it needs to be bound to something. It needs to be bound to a salt is oftentimes what you'll see in dietary supplements. If you just go to any retail store, you pop on Amazon, you just look for magnesium, oftentimes it's going to be that salt form, right? And the problem with that is our body does not have an active mechanism to pull those salts into our body. It basically just, we push it up against our gut wall and we just kind of try to see what fits in. And whatever doesn't, like you said, hangs out in our GI tract. And the problem with these salts is they'll either A, irritate the GI lining directly, or they affect osmotic balances, which is a really fancy way of saying how much water is in a particular place, right? And so if you have a lot of salt in your GI tract, especially with magnesium, what happens when you have a lot of salt in there is it draws more water into the stool. And if you guys have tried to take higher doses of magnesium because you know it's good for you, which it is, right? What's the number one complaint of someone taking too much magnesium? I'll let you answer that one.
Diarrhea.
Diarrhea. Yeah, that you are going to go to the bathroom and it's not going to be fun and you're going to blame the product and you're not going to want to take magnesium ever again, right? And so what we do is we don't use the salt because we know the salt is super poorly absorbed, really, really poor absorption. So we use it for everything, for our calcium, for our magnesium, for our iron, for you name it, right? We use what's called an amino acid chelate, which is what Dr. Gray was talking about. And so instead of a salt, we bind it to an amino acid. And for those of you who are familiar with amino acid products, what does our body use amino acids for? Proteins. What are we? A lot of proteins, right? And so our body, thankfully, has a mechanism. There's an active mechanism it can use to grab those amino acids in our GI tract and pull them into our body. So what do I call this? It's like the Trojan horse effect of minerals, is that we've hidden the magnesium or hidden the calcium on top of something our body already needs. It doesn't need the salt, it does, but it's not in the concentration we're putting in with, magnesium. And so it's going to grab those amino acids and literally pull them into our body. And when it does, it says, cool, thanks, Thomas, appreciate the amino acid. Going to go make a really nice protein with this. Chops off the magnesium and sends it on its way. Chops off the calcium and sends it on its way, right? So the benefit to this is you're going to get more bang for your buck, gram for gram, milligram for milligram. If you're taking magnesium or taking calcium, you're going to get better absorption rates into your body, which means you're going to feel better taking that product. And number two, it's going to lower those GI complaints. Because if we're not having magnesium and salts just sit in our GI tract, they're going places, they're doing things, they're helping our cardiovascular system, they're helping make neurotransmitters, they're doing all the lovely things we like about magnesium, right? Yep. And so when they actively get in there, it's going to lower that risk that you're going to end up going to the bathroom and hating that product.
And just echoing what you said, they have such higher absorption. Patients, when they get a Cal Mag off our shelf, they say, why is there only 200 or 300 milligrams, whatever it is, right? And I say, because they say, my doctor told me to take 1,000 milligrams, right? Well, these have such high absorption. They're 3 times more absorbed. Am I saying that correctly? Therefore, you don't need 1,000 milligrams. You only need 200 or 300 milligrams of these, which is just fewer capsules for patients to take who are also already taking a lot of supplements.
100%. Yeah. For instance, with magnesium, the number one form, I see this form in a lot of retail pharmacies. The number one form that I see is magnesium oxide. There's a lot of products out there. There's one called Magox that's just highly pressed tableted magnesium oxide. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. So it is what it is, right? But our form, the bisglycinate chelate is what it's called. No one needs to remember that. It won't be on the quiz, right? But the chelated form of magnesium has up to 8.5 times greater absorption. And that is supported by human clinical data from Albion Labs, the company that we get our minerals from. I know we're spending more time on these minerals, but it's super, super, super important because when we go talk about mitochondrial complex, we go talk about these other products, we use those forms of minerals in all of our products. That's the form that we utilize.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for taking that home. Okay.
Yeah.
Still in the C's, let's go to citrus bergamot. So I also heavily use this because of the cardiovascular benefits that it provides. So you guys have a certain patented technology, I think, for this, and I want you to tell me where you source your product from also. Actually, I'm going to pause for a second. Do you know where you get your berberine? Speaking of sourcing, do you know? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I'll need to look into that. I want to say Spain, but I need to double check that.
Just because that's also something for
I
consumers
need
to
to
think
double check
about,
that.
like if this product is just kind of grown, I'm just making this up, on a farm in California or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I guess the case in point with bergamot, which we're going to talk about, that doesn't mean that it may have the same therapeutic benefit as the product that is grown where all the initial research has been done. So, and I'll let you explain that with bergamot, but I do use bergamot specifically to help lower cholesterol. So if patients come to me and their cholesterol is elevated, also if their triglycerides are elevated and glucose, this is a great product that has multiple benefits in those departments. So that's kind of where I heavily use this. It does not deplete CoQ10 like statin medications can, so that's just a helpful benefit. And yeah, it comes from citrus bergamot fruit. So tell us more about bergamot.
Yeah, there's a researcher in Italy who has a great Italian name, Dr. Vincenzo Malachi, which I just love saying, it just rolls right off the tongue, right? His team started realizing, this goes to kind of where we source that product from, but his team was realizing that this is blue zones, right? So there's 8 blue zones all across the planet. And for those who don't know, it's a population that for whatever reason is just living past 100 more than the surrounding areas or even other parts of the world, right? There's actually one in California, Loma Linda, California, which is great, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but they're all over the world. And one of them is this portion of Italy where they consume this bergamot juice pretty regularly. Like someone in Florida would be drinking orange juice every day, or someone in California would get to, make lemonade from a, lemon plant in their front yard or whatever it is. We don't get to do that in Iowa, but what they're doing is they realized through this research that these people had really low cardiovascular issues. They were living past 100 and they had really healthy cholesterol levels. And so they started to look at the citrus bergamot plant and they realized that there's a lot of polyphenols in that fruit that are able to modulate that cholesterol formation response. It's called a mevalonate pathway. They were able to modulate that pathway pretty effectively using a natural citrus bergamot. And so we actually go to the company, we utilize the company, and the raw material is called bergamonte, but we utilize the company that is in Italy doing that research. And they're growing that plant in that correct portion of the world, because the blue zone is not in, for instance, like Texas or something like that, or California. Or,
I guess there is another blue zone, but not the specific blue zone. Yeah.
But the place where the people are living past 100 that are drinking this juice, that's where they grow this plant. They're doing it in the portion of the world because the way that, and we talked about this on our first episode ever, but we talked about how if you grow a plant in one area of the world and it's exposed to certain conditions in its environment, that plant is evolutionary, from an evolutionary standpoint, going to produce certain chemicals, produce certain polyphenols based on its environment. Right. And so if we put that plant in the correct environment, it makes the polyphenols we're looking for. And then this is the company that's got all the clinical data, which is awesome. There's human clinical trials associated. I know you've seen them for helping with cholesterol support, which is fantastic.
So you want to know when you're buying products that you're getting high quality products that are sourced appropriately. Because I've had patients who have come to me on bergamot and I kind of look at it and the dosage is janky and like they got it on Amazon, sorry, but I'm thinking this isn't very high quality. And I say, can you just, I've even for some patients, even when we first got this bergamot product, I just said, I'll give you this bottle for free. Will you do a trial? Will you switch to this product? And let's just see if the results are better. And sure enough, switching to a higher quality product.
Surprise, surprise.
It actually worked.
And I know I've said this, but the easiest way, if you're wondering, hey, I don't know which ones are good, if I'm looking online or looking at whatever, is just go look at Dr. Gray's website, look at your longevity blueprint. She's obviously done her due diligence looking for these products and these companies. Obviously, we're not the only one, but the products that she has, we're a company that's doing this for you. We do the research. We go to these companies and source them and test them. And if you want to hear more in detail how we do that, first and second episode are a great way to get into that.
So I would say don't just purchase your supplements at a corner store. You want to purchase from a licensed clinician because we're putting our reputation and our name on the line. We're backing these products saying these should work, right?
Yeah. And these are things that you're doing. And this is a big point too. These are things you're doing every single day with lots of patients and pulling blood and looking at labs and seeing how in real clinical practice, these products are affecting patients, which the corner store is not doing. Amazon is not doing. Walmart is not doing. Right? And so if you want to know how these work with your functional provider, work with Dr. Gray. Absolutely.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Okay, let's go on to collagen. And I actually, we have so many products. We have like 1,000 SKUs here. I don't even know what our collagen product is named, but it's something collagen, like collagen support probably.
Sure.
So collagen is one of our most abundant proteins in the body. And it's something that we need for tendons and ligaments, for hair, skin, and nails. So there is some collagen in bone broth, but you can also take a more concentrated collagen product. So tell us more about our collagen product and why it's different, why it's better.
You said you can edit these, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. You actually don't private label our collagen. That's like the
I thought
one
we
top 20
did.
product. No, it's the one top 20 product for our company that you don't private label with us.
We'll just pretend we do. So talk about it.
Yeah.
I had a
We got that. We
commercial
started, we
because we
started
did a
talking about
commercial for it, but then yeah, that's
yeah.
okay. You can still talk about it. Okay, so
Yeah,
I
I
gotta just
know
write
you have
down
so
about.
many, so it's hard to keep track, but that's the one. If you look at our top 20 list, you have like everything
All of
else is
them
just
except
check, check,
that.
check, check, check. Collagen, check, 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 check. Yeah, we'll get
Well,
there. We'll
you know
get there.
what? Since we're at an editing pause here, I gotta do one thing really quick. I'm sorry to do this, but
No, please.
someone is coming to our house to pick up pavers today.
Okay.
This can't be him though. I'm gonna
Give us
call
a little
this
bit of a
number
break.
really quick.
You're
Yes,
good.
take
Do
a
your
break.
thing.
Take a break.
Yeah.
Someone called me right at the. That's not them. So my son's on summer break from school, and
Sure.
Eric's mom is watching him. And I said, "Oh, this guy's coming to pick up all these papers from our garage." And she said, "I'm taking him to the library." And I said, "Okay, well then, how is this guy going to get in our house?" And his wife, I don't have his number, and his wife's not picking up on Facebook. But I guess it wasn't him. Okay, that's okay. So we will edit that out, and then, but I'm still gonna
Sorry.
have you talk about collagen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here we go. So Thomas, tell us why our collagen is better.
Yeah. Yeah, so collagen is a huge market. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry just in and of itself. There's a lot of companies out there, and we're probably familiar with quite a few of them, right? You've probably seen the ads with Jennifer Aniston, and she sits there and
Yep,
says, "I mix collagen in my coffee every day," and flips her
yep.
hair, and everyone says, "Woohoo!" Right? So, the thing is, from a clinical perspective, are people going to feel better if they take collagen in general? Probably, right? But from a clinical perspective, there's a huge variance between those raw materials, right? And what I mean by that is that collagen itself needs to be below a particular molecular weight in order to be useful by the body. And that size is 3,000 kilodaltons. And again, this won't be on the quiz, but what you do need to know is 3,000 kilodaltons is a size, and it's very, very, very small, right? So peptides, in order to be used by the body, have to be below that size in order for them to actually be bioavailable within our system and actually utilized to make hair, skin, nails, and all the things that people want when they take those products, right? There are certain companies out there, I'm not going to name them by name, right? But there's certain companies out there, one of them in a nice, pretty blue bottle, that their average peptide size is about 12,000 kilodaltons. And so they're 4 times larger than would be considered bioavailable and useful within the body. And then to compensate for that, they use a particularly large dose, assuming that at least some portion of those will be below a certain kilodalton size. And so when we actually look from a clinical perspective, our product has 3 patented raw materials that between the 3 of them have 25 human clinical trials. Coming from some pretty reputable places. One of my favorite actually comes out of Harvard University in conjunction with Tufts Medical Center. A very, very, very robust study that was done on patients with osteoarthritis for improving joint pain, which is huge, right? So it's not just a hair, skin, and nails product, which there absolutely is application for, but this is also for patients like, this is something my mom takes. If you're listening, hi mom, but this is something my mom takes, right? She took this for her plantar fasciitis, and her plantar fasciitis went away within a couple of months. She said she continues to take it because she wakes up and I'm not going to say how old she is, but she says her joints feel a little better when she wakes up and starts moving. It takes her a second, as she says, to kind of get things going in the morning, right? And so when you look at our product, our dose is about 5 grams per scoop. Your dose about 5 grams per scoop on that product. If you look at some of the other companies, they're anywhere from 15 to 20, if not even higher. And the concern is that when we increase the dose of collagen, it increases oxalate production in the body, right? Especially when you get above 10 grams per day, you significantly increase oxalate production in the body. You can probably expand on why we are concerned about oxalates, but the primary concern is that they can crystallize, is that they can bind to other things in our urine, especially and crystallize. I'm not saying that certain collagens will always cause stones, because that's the concern with crystallization. But if patients already have high oxalate levels, this can put them over the edge. Or if they're already in a position where they're concerned about getting stones, this can kind of be the tipping point for some of them.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, and we can test for high oxalate levels in patients on the nutritional evaluation. But yeah, think of oxalates as almost glass shards in the body that can lead to pain. So fibromyalgia pain, joint pain, even gout. And it can also lead to bladder pain, interstitial cystitis, whatnot. So yeah, not good. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Okay, so collagen, we all need collagen.
Yeah, super important. Makes you feel good. It's a feel good product, right? There's some products maybe we don't notice right away. B vitamins, you would probably notice if you're deficient. Collagen is definitely a feel good product. You take that, you will feel better. Absolutely.
I know my husband likes to put it in his coffee. So you can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I do too. Yep.
All right. Coenzyme Q10. So coenzyme Q10 is another antioxidant. We've mentioned some of those. It's found in every cell in our body. It plays a critical role in neurological protection, energy production, cardiovascular health, blood sugar balance, and it's known for being it's a fat soluble antioxidant. So many medications we take, like I was mentioning with B vitamins, medications can deplete B vitamins. They can also deplete coenzyme Q10, and CoQ10 can be a little harder to get from food. So I think a lot of patients need to supplement with that. Through my fellowship program, I was kind of just taught a general rule of thumb is for every medication they take that could deplete it, they need 100 more milligrams. So if they're on a diabetes med and a cholesterol med and a blood pressure med, they're going to need at least 300 milligrams of CoQ10. So it's something that also I have found can be helpful for headaches, for lowering blood pressure, and then energy production as well. So yeah, it's something we always put patients on. If they are on a statin medication, our goal is to, minimize the need for statin medications and use safer alternatives like the bergamot. But if they're on it, or even on Registrice, some people respond great to Registrice. That can deplete CoQ10. Those patients need to take this too. So what else can you tell us about CoQ10?
Yeah, CoQ10, if you're on a statin, this is a must. This is something every clinician I work with has heard this. If you guys are listening, every pharmacist I work with, this is probably one of the first things that we do, because statins are top 3 prescriptions that are going out of every single pharmacy, especially in the Midwest, right? This is huge prescriptions that is utilized. Do some people need it? Absolutely. But this is something, if you are taking a statin prescription, you need to be taking CoQ10. That mevalonate pathway that I talked about earlier, when we were talking about citrus bergamot, there's 2 sides to that pathway. One of them is cholesterol, and the other side is CoQ10. And so when you block up that pathway by taking certain prescriptions like statins, do you stop the production of cholesterol or lower the production of cholesterol? Yes, that is the goal, right? The other side of that coin that you're going to do simultaneously, whether you want it or not, is you are going to reduce your CoQ10 levels. Antioxidant, energy production, cognitive function. It's used and shows up in migraine protocol, shows up in a lot of different things. This is absolutely paramount. If you have restless legs, if you have all sorts of, you get the leg cramping and you've been taking statins for a while and you've got these side effects that kind of creep up after time. Maybe they weren't there when you first started, but they're here now. It could be a CoQ10 depletion. And this is absolutely something you can add on. Talk to Dr. Gray, talk to your pharmacist. This is huge. Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. Easy peasy there. Okay. Let's go to, I put this under C's just because our liver detox product is called the Core Restore, right? Program. And so I have a lot of patients who consider doing this after spring break. Sometimes they'll do it before, after holidays, or they just want to lose weight before summer. So I do want you to talk more about that. And we could do I did a whole episode with Steve. On how important it is to detox. But essentially, just to convince the audience, the average person is exposed to 14 pounds of pesticides, herbicides, food additives, and preservatives, which is the equivalent of a bowling ball of toxins every year. So just like how your home and your car need filter changes and oil changes, right? Regular maintenance is required for your body to cleanse itself and eliminate those toxins. So we do have a program that can help big time, that's designed to help support phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox pathways. It has ingredients like beet and artichoke and dandelion and milk thistle and alpha-lipoic acid, which we've mentioned before. So those help the liver and gallbladder kind of purge toxins into the gut. And then there's a protein fiber powder to bind them so you can eliminate the toxins. And the program is combined, it gives you step-by-step instructions on exactly how to eat. It's combined with an anti-inflammatory diet and some supplements to give you the cofactors for all those liver processes to work appropriately. That's all mapped out in the patient guide. So it's pretty easy to follow. And then that can help pilot patients into better eating behaviors to just continue living that lifestyle long-term. When I was first introduced to orthomolecular, which was, I think, like 2006 or 7, it was a long time ago. I did this and I lost some weight and I went gluten-free through it and I just felt better. And so I was like, I'm onto something. And that's when I first started kind of trusting even this company, Orthomolecular, because I had such a good experience with that program. So anything else you want to add onto that? I think everybody needs it.
We love Core Restore. I do 2 of these a year. I do one in January as kind of a new year, new me type of thing. I do that too, right? And then I also do one, I haven't done it yet, but about this time of year. And I'm due for it for sure. But this is one of those, if you're just kind of feeling a little sluggish, feeling like maybe you've put on a couple pounds or you're not sure where they're coming from, right? Obviously, there's a lot we can talk about with that. But this is a great kind of introduction to that. Like Dr. Gray said, it's a all-in-one program. It comes in a kit. It has 3 products in this kit. It has step-by-step. There's a booklet that will hold your hand and teach you exactly what you need to do. It's particularly easy. It takes about 7 days, right? And it focuses on increasing the function of your liver, because where does your body put toxins that it can't process effectively? I'm sorry to say, it puts them in your belly fat, puts them in adipose cells, and it kind of stores them there and locks them away until it can basically process them. And if it never gets to them, it never gets to them. And so they're just going to sit there, right? And so this kit helps move things along, helps kind of flush your system out. We call it a biotransformation kit, but it's essentially a detoxification kit, if you want to think about it that way. And patients on average, I've got weight loss clinics, so we utilize this as kind of a step 1, right? But this is a great way to lose, 3 to 9 pounds in that first week. That's about on average what I hear. Yeah.
And I have some patients who will do it 2 weeks or who will do it 4 weeks, right? There's so many different, components, pieces of the puzzle with weight loss. We want to make sure patients' stress is low, that they're exercising, they're eating clean, they're hormonally sound, right? That they don't have insulin resistance, or we're working to reduce that, and that we're detoxifying the body. So it's just a helpful tool, helpful strategy. If you haven't tried it, you should try it. You cannot take that if you're pregnant or nursing. And if you have active large gallstones, it could mobilize those. So please don't do it in that situation. And if you do have diabetes, you can do this, but this includes kind of a modified fast. So you don't just talk to your provider, because you can eat more than is kind of recommended through this, if that's your situation.
Yeah. So if you just want to kickstart some changes, say, hey, I've been trying to do it for a while, don't know how to get started, or you're kind of intimidated by that, take this kit home. You can do it on your own time. And it's really, 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 really easy to do. Anyone can pick one up and do it. Very easy. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. This is another blend. It's a product called cystostatin. We don't sell a ton of this, but it's a very useful product for patients who need it. And so this is a bladder health product. It has uva-ursi in it, which does have antibacterial components that just help to promote, I'll say, microbial balance in the bladder and flush out the urinary tract. It has berberine again, which we keep mentioning, right? Again, which kind of serves as a natural antibiotic, antimicrobial. Has
Berberine will never go away.
It has marshmallow root, which can be very soothing to the mucous membranes. When the bladder, the lining gets very irritated, it can be very helpful. And then it has celery seed, which serves more of as a diuretic, I believe. Is that right with the celery? Okay. To purge the infection, and it has some bladderwrack as well to help reduce inflammation. So it's just a blend of synergistic ingredients to help patients who are having urinary tract infection-like symptoms. So I say at the minute patients start feeling like they're getting some of those symptoms, sometimes they know it's after intercourse, whatnot, take this product right away, see if you can kick the infection. Now, obviously, if symptoms are progressing, some patients may need an antibiotic, but have this handy in your, in your medicine or your supplement cabinet to use as needed. So this is for more acute urinary symptoms. Anything
this
to
is great.
add on
It's a
that?
good thing. If you know that you're the type of patient where this has been a problem or could be a problem, this is something that's good to have on hand, and you can just start it and start doing it as a way to help kind of mitigate that before it really becomes a problem. And like I said, if you know you're that patient, you know that you're that patient. So it's a good thing to pick up. Absolutely.
Okay, we'll go on to D here. So I want to talk about DHEA. So DHEA is a steroid hormone precursor that we check in many of our patients. It's also very important to support the stress response. DHEA, again, can help build estrogen. It can help build testosterone. It's just very important. Research shows essentially the higher your DHEA, the better you age, aka the higher your hormones, the less joint pain, just better memory, everything. DHEA is just important for helping even with blood sugar imbalances, great for mood, great for bone health, great for a lot of things. So this is something that I many times will use in my younger patients who come in with lower hormone levels. If someone's 80 years old, I'm probably just going to be giving them hormone replacement therapy, or 50s, 60s, whatnot. But when they're younger, I use DHEA, and we can use very small doses, 5-10 milligrams, and it can work wonders in patients. So it is a useful tool as well. What do you have to say on that?
Yeah, that's great. This is something I would encourage you to talk to your provider about and have some follow-up with, and look at, if you're curious, if you feel like you're off, and this is a hormone precursor. So if you feel like you're a little off and maybe you want to have that conversation, this is a good thing to just kind of get a check-in. Take your body to the shop if you want to think about it that way, and get a full diagnostic run and kind of figure out where you're at, and then figure out if DHEA is good for you. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, let's go on to DIM. So we heavily use DIM here. So if you listen to the podcast, any of the hormone episodes, I'm sure you've heard me mention DIM. So I will say in my in graduate school, my doctorate focused on estrogen metabolism. So I read a lot about DIM and the benefits really to fibroids and cysts, really just in general to breast, ovarian, uterine, prostate, and colon health. So what it does is it helps, I will say, I don't know if I want to go into the whole estrogen metabolism spiel here, but it really
There's
helps
another
boost
podcast episode. Yeah.
yeah, we have one on that.
Yeah,
It
right.
helps boost the 2:16 ratio. So it helps you clear out excess estrogen. So it's kind of like eating 6 pounds of cruciferous vegetables a day without the gas. So it's really going to help patients who have like breast tenderness, even with hormone replacement therapy, which sometimes we need to reduce their dose. This DIM can just help them clear out excess estrogen. And my younger patients who aren't on estrogen, who may be estrogen dominant, who are having PMS and heavy bleeding, whatnot, DIM can be very helpful, again, to bring down the estrogen. So those patients typically are more estrogen dominant, have high estrogen or lower progesterone. And so the solution is to lower the estrogen, right? Help the liver, the body clear it out. I'm getting tired, more better, just kidding. Getting it cleared out more appropriately with the DIM, or to raise the progesterone to kind of bring those back into balance. So DIM can just be very helpful. It also will minimize testosterone converting to estrogen. So a lot of our male patients will also take that. So it's just great from a breast cancer or any of those organs that I mentioned, cancer risk reduction standpoint, supports estrogen metabolism and helps with hormone symptoms.
Yeah, like Dr. Gray said, this is something we could probably spend an entire hour talking about, why we would need them, where they're coming from, where they're going, type of thing with estrogens. But, as it relates to our body, it's a really interesting pathway. And if you're curious, and give this a Google and see how complex this truly is. But there's essentially 3 pathways our estrogens are going to metabolize through, and we call them the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right? Is that one of them? We're pretty okay with it going down that path. We know it's going to be properly excreted. We're going to PM out. Number 2, the whole thing, it's getting out of our body, right? But when we start going down the bad and eventually the ugly, that's a scenario where maybe we have too much estrogen in our body, so we're estrogen dominant, or we have a scenario where we're putting more estrogens in like we would be with hormones, and we need those to basically effectively go to a healthy pathway so they don't cause a problem. Right. And those problems are what Dr. Gray was just talking about earlier. And so what DIM does is it helps basically make that good pathway bigger. It makes it more open. In a nutshell, I know it's super oversimplified. Again, if you're curious, Google estrogen metabolism. It opens up that pathway. So more of those hormones that are there for both women and men, right? If we're concerned about having too many estrogens, guys out there, it opens up that pathway so we can put more of those estrogens out the good pathway so they don't hang around and they don't get reabsorbed into our body and raise our estrogen levels and cause problems, like I said. Yeah.
Very helpful, usually very well tolerated. The only side effects I've heard are occasionally I'll hear headaches, which I think patients are just detoxing, and that fluctuation in hormone levels is triggering that. If patients have really low estrogen and they actually don't need this, it could induce hot flashes, but that's pretty rare that would happen.
Yeah, very rare. Talk to Dr. Gray.
Okay, going on to, this is not an orthomolecular product, but I just briefly want to mention D-ribose. So this is great for fibromyalgia. So Jacob Teitelbaum, I took his certification years ago, and one of his theories is that fibromyalgia is kind of a state of energy crisis on a cellular level. And so we need to feed those cells, giving them building blocks for energy so that muscles don't ache. And so one of his strategies is to use D-ribose, which you can think of as a sugar. It shouldn't raise your blood sugar, but using a 5-gram scoop, teeny little scoop you can put in a smoothie or on your food 3 times a day for 12 weeks has been very effective for my patients. It's just one of those things that is an easy trial. It's either going to help or it's not. And so many of my patients swear by it and really appreciate D-ribose for muscle aches, back to fibromyalgia, but also just for chronic fatigue in general, just helps with energy. So that's D-ribose. Let's go on to vitamin D. Where do we start? Vitamin D helps with so many things.
I got excited again. This is huge, absolutely huge. This is, if your vitamin D levels are low, this is going to affect almost every other system in your body, either directly or indirectly, right? And I don't know where everyone listening is located, but we get lucky enough here to live in Iowa, where for a good 5-6 months out of the year, we choose to do it. It's great. But for 5-6 months out of the year, we spend a lot of time inside, right? We spend a lot of time inside. And so even still, even if we're outside and we're doing whatever, a lot of times people are using sunscreens and they're using all sorts of stuff to prevent that good UV radiation in proper amounts, right? Not all of it's great, but in proper amounts from hitting our skin and creating vitamin D in our bodies, right? And so this is something, it's super easy to supplement. It's very inexpensive. It helps with neurotransmitters, helps with your immune system, can help with inflammatory pathways, helps with a lot of things, right? And I'll let you expand more on that. Bone density. Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
I usually just tell patients bone density, immune support,
Yep.
mood, energy. I mean, those are the main things. Yep. So it
Things
will
everyone
increase,
wants. Yeah.
it will
Yeah.
increase calcium absorption. So that's just
Yep.
something that's important to note.
Yep.
If you're prone to having kidney stones, we're going to get to K2 eventually, or maybe I should just say here, you really need to take this with K2 because K2 will help direct the calcium into the bone matrix, while magnesium and vitamin D will help the calcium get into the bloodstream. K2 is the one that will make sure the calcium goes to the appropriate place. So the only caution is if you really had kidney stones, we don't want to put you on super high dose, especially without taking K2. But we carry this in 1,000 and 5,000 IUs, liquid or capsule. We also have it with and without K2. And then we have the 50,000 dose pack. So my standard rule of thumb is for patients whose levels, which everyone should have their level tested, are less than 30, or close enough, even if you're 32, whatever, you're close enough to that, you're considered deficient. So we put those patients usually on a 50,000 IU dose pack, which is $20. It's very cheap, but they essentially take 50,000 IUs 2 to 3 times a week for 5 weeks. And then they can hopefully, many times they'll be rechecking their level. Otherwise, we'll reduce them to a maintenance of the 5,000 IUs per day. I don't think I've ever seen 1,000 IUs cut it for anyone. I mean, if you want your level, so the reference ranges are 30 to 80 or 30 to 100. You want your levels like at least over 50, if not 80
minimum. Yeah.
And I've never seen anyone, at least around here in Iowa, taking only 1,000 in that range. Most people need a minimum of 5,000.
But I want to emphasize too, if you want to get 50 to 80, it is very unlikely, and you've probably seen this in clinical practice, it's very unlikely you're there. If you're wondering, do I need vitamin D? It's very unlikely you're there without supplementation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would be incredibly surprised.
Yeah. My husband's dad eats a lot of dairy, and I was convinced that he was going to be deficient. He's about the only patient I've ever seen whose vitamin D was decent. It was like in the 40s or something, not taking it, but he was consuming, he was getting, vitamin D from dairy. So let's go there for a second. So where do you get vitamin D? You mentioned the sun. You can get it from dairy products, which I'm not a huge advocate for. I mean, there's only 1,000 IUs of vitamin D in 1 cup of milk. So to get 2,000 IUs per day, you'd have to drink 20 glasses of milk, which is just no one should be doing that.
And even then, 2,000 IUs is not moving.
Not enough, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, this is a very affordable nutrient. It's just an easy no-brainer. We should take it. You can also get it from fish. So I do recommend patients eat oily fish. That can be helpful as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to digestive enzymes. We've kind of alluded to these a little bit. Previously, I was just mentioning more or less HCl, which is more acid. We have 2 different digestive enzyme products. So under the D's, we have a product called digestive support. And then under the E here, we have a product called enzyme support. They're slightly different. And so I'll try to differentiate them. But I'm going to actually start with the enzyme support. So the enzyme support has a blend of acid-resistant plant-based enzymes to help kind of maximize your digestion and absorption of nutrients. So this is going to help with carbs, proteins, and fats. But I will say it doesn't have bile or HCl in it. So it's a great standard, just kind of rule of thumb. Anyone who wants to try digestive enzyme because they're bloated with meals, whatnot, have a little heartburn, they could try enzyme support. Now,
and the cool thing being, but the cool thing being from plants is that they operate in a really wide pH range. And so if we've been taking a PPI, or we have some sort of, I don't produce enough stomach acid, like we talked about earlier, that's why there's a little bit of overlap in this conversation. That product will operate regardless of what your stomach acid looks like. So it's going to help you digest, help you break down your food. If you eat food and you get bloated and you get uncomfortable and you know that you're not digesting very well, I hear this all the time. This is a very safe way, 15 minutes before you eat, just get that on board and start using it. Absolutely.
Perfect. But even if you forget to take it, like my husband's like, oh, I didn't take it. It's 15 minutes before the meal. I'm like, you can still take it. You can take it as you're eating.
It's okay. Yeah, you can still do it.
So we also have a product called digestive support. So this has the betaine and HCl and pepsin betaine, HCl, and pepsin, which I had mentioned previously at a lower dosage than the latter product I mentioned. Plus it has a few enzymes, not as many as enzyme support, but it has some, and it has ox bile. So if you've had your gallbladder removed, chances are you can't digest, break down, absorb fats very well, which we can also see evidence on a stool test. We'll see if patients are pooping out their fat, right?
Yeah.
So this product, I think it's a great combination for those patients. Again, it has the enzymes, HCl, and some bile. Any comments on that?
Absolutely. No, that's perfect. Absolutely. Just slightly. I know it's very nuanced, and it probably sounds like there's a lot of overlap between even those 3 products that we're referencing. But yeah, they're slightly different patient types, but both are great options if you had some digestive issues. And if you have questions, always great idea to ask Dr. Gray. So Yeah.
Okay, moving on to ease. So previously we mentioned that cell danger response with chronic conditions like mold toxicity, whatnot. So many of my patients suffering with mold issues, we put on binders. So we have a binder called EnviroBind. Now, this is not more of an immunologic binder like SBIgG, which we're going to get to in the S's. This is more of an environmental binder. So this has zeolite, charcoal, shilajit, if I say that right. Those are kind of
Yeah, I've heard of both ways. Yeah.
which are very helpful. So those can bind environmental toxins, but specifically things like mycotoxins, right? That we're having patients take when we're treating them for mold illness. Now, this is also something if you kind of get food poisoning or you're traveling, you're not quite sure what you're exposed to, this is also something that would be great to take. But do you want to expand on the benefits, why this product is maybe better than some other binders on the market?
Yeah. So and just in general, why we'd be talking about a binder in the first place is your body's constantly exposed to stuff. Even when we wake up, your body's exposed. Before you even leave your house, I've seen numbers like you're exposed to 100 different chemicals before you even leave your house, right? And I know hopefully a lot of people listening to the podcast have some good shampoo brands and stuff. But if you start looking at labels of what you're consuming and what you're rubbing on your skin, I mean, you're exposed to a lot of different things. And so your body's going to process this and move it through your system. What the binder does is it acts as an insurance policy that once your body has deposited this out and ready to go in your GI tract, that it goes through and it binds to everything and prevents it from being reabsorbed. Because that will happen, is that it can go back in your system and clog up that whole detoxification process again, which is when we start feeling kind of crummy, right? Yep. And so this product, it took us a while to get to the market because we were sourcing it. The activated charcoal specifically is such an effective binder. And this is the same stuff you get like an emergency room if you're exposed to poison or whatever it may be. That activated charcoal is really hard to source because it binds to things in its environment. And so even with the shipping processes, we weren't sure exactly why it was happening, but even with the shipping processes or whatever it comes in contact with, things will get into it and they won't leave. And so there's actually
quite a few contaminate it, you mean?
Yeah, there are quite a few activated charcoal companies we tried to work with who could meet kind of our demand because we make a lot of supplements who were using activated charcoal or were selling us activated charcoal that had contaminants in them. And we would ask, them to prove that it wasn't there when they made it. And some of them were able to do that, which means that it was able to interact with things in its environment, right? And so we mix that together and we keep that and we test it before and after. And we put that in a capsule and into a sealed bottle. And then once the patient takes it, because we don't want to in high concentration expose more toxins, right? Because that'd be kind of counterintuitive, right? And so what this is meant to be is it's meant to be an insurance policy. This is something that's going to bind to and prevent it from going back into our system. So we know it's leaving. We know for a fact it's going to leave. Yeah.
Love it. So even if you don't have that, right, mold toxicity, one of my patients recently, exactly. Not patients. One of my team members, one of our employees recently traveled to Mexico and she got there and she was like, oh my gosh, there's mold everywhere, right? But she had no place to go. She had to stay there. So even if you're in an environment, or maybe it's a family member's home, you're traveling for the holidays and you have to sleep in the basement and it smells mildewy, right? This would be a great product to just take to have on board for those days, so that hopefully those toxins, like you said, aren't deposited into your system, that they can get bound and excreted.
Or even just hotels are really bad culprits, gyms, places that have a lot of moisture in the air, kind of gross, right? Some of these other places that, pools or whatever it may be, a lot of these places are just culprits for growing that stuff, unfortunately. So if you're someone who, you go to the gym quite regularly, you're being exposed and you just don't feel quite right. Maybe you notice it when you go into that gym, you're like, ooh, something funky is going on in here. Good opportunity to talk to Dr. Gray. Number one, I'm going to keep saying that, but make sure we're using something to make sure that's leaving our system. Yeah.
I'm kind of a nutcase. Anywhere I go, I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm looking for water damage. I'm, like to see, is this building contaminated?
It's a good thing to do, Yeah.
And if it is, and you can, get out. But okay, moving on to F. Let's talk about fish oil. So I think everybody needs, especially living in Iowa, needs to take fish oil because we don't have access to fresh fish. Fish oil contains omega-3 fatty acids, and we are so highly exposed to omega-6s here with soy and corn, which are pro-inflammatory. We need to balance out that taking the anti-inflammatory omega-3s, which primarily are going to come from fish. Now, omega-9s are more olive oil, which I'm fine with those. Please consume lots of that, but you still are going to need your omega-3s. So fish oil is great for maintaining just a cardiovascular profile, because it's great for lowering glucose, good for lowering cholesterol and triglycerides, whatnot. It's a first go-to always when patients come into my office and show me their labs and they do have those elevations. I also help use it for memory. It's great for the cognitive development, even of a child in utero. So for pregnant ladies, great for reducing pain, great for reducing headaches and menstrual cramps. It just has lots of applications. And kind of like how I said earlier, almost everyone I test is low on alpha lipoic acid. I will say many are also low on vitamin D, and then many are low on omega-3. So we can test for that to kind of prove that you need to be taking it. But what else do you want to share on fish oil or omega-3s specifically?
Yeah, unless you're eating a really good Mediterranean diet, which if you are, good for you. But unless you're doing some pretty hardcore lifestyle stuff, it's going to be really hard for you to have really good omega-3 levels, right? And Dr. Gray kind of hit the nail on the head. In Iowa, it's a problem. In the US, it's a problem. It really doesn't matter where you're living, right? And the problem is we use a lot of oils that are not good for us. They're pro-inflammatory, so especially like omega-6. We have a set of enzymes in our body that act on omega-3s and omega-6s the exact same way, and they cannot tell the difference. Right? They're called delta 6 and delta 5 desaturase enzymes. And so they're there all the time. They're just doing their thing, right? And if we put, I always say, if we put 10 omega-6s, in front of these enzymes and 10 omega-3s in front of these enzymes, what are the odds that they're going to pick one or the other? 50-50, right? But the reality is most people in the US are eating anywhere between 20 to 25 to 1 omega-6 for every omega-3. Seriously, it's that skewed,
Bad,
right?
yeah.
And so if we put 20 to 25 of those omega-6s versus one of those omega-3s in front of that enzyme, which one is it going to pick, right? Every now and then it's going to grab an omega-3 because it's there, right? But a million times a second, every cell in our body, it's going to be picking that omega-6. And the problem with that is they're pro-inflammatory, does the opposite of what we want with those omega-3s, right? And so we want to supplement with that because, like I said, it's very, very, very challenging to continuously do that with our diet every single day. And it's super, super, super easy. I know we said there's no pill or potion that can replace lifestyle changes, but a fish oil is one of those instances where you can really introduce that in your system and very effectively kind of counterbalance that. Obviously, with making lifestyle changes too. Don't just keep eating, McDonald's every day or anything like that. But yeah,
totally agreed. So most of my patients, I'll start with 1 gram. But to be honest, to suffice the level needed on a nutritional evaluation, most patients are going to need 2 grams a day, which is 2 of our capsules.
Minimum.
Patients who bring in their fish oil from other again, corner shops, typically they could be like 6 capsules a day because they're just not as potent as ours. And ours just obviously is very, pure. I hope I say this right because I always forget all these products have nuances, but I've said this on the podcast before that this fish oil has the shortest seed to shelf time in the industry, which is only about 3 months as compared to like 18 months plus, which is the national average, which means a lot of the over-the-counter fish oil is oxidized and rancid and just bad. This fish oil is also, I know, vacuum distilled. It's been tested to ensure there's no heavy metals, pesticides, PCBs are contained. So it's a very pure product. And although 3 months doesn't sound fresh, it's the freshest you're going to find, like, period.
It takes time to make it into an oil that you can actually consume. And also it's in the correct form too, which is a big thing.
Yes,
mention that. A lot of those retail products, and they don't have to label this. They do not have to say it. There's no requirement, no governing agency that says you have to say what form your fish oil is in. Most people, 99% of people don't even realize there are different forms. Most of those forms, if you go look at your bottle right now and you pick it up and it does not say triglyceride form somewhere on the bottle, it is what's called an ethyl ester. And an ethyl ester, as you can imagine, it has kind of a chemically name to it. It is an alcohol-backed fish oil. The backbone of that compound is ethyl alcohol. And so what does that do? It oxidizes that fat really quickly, and then your liver actually has to process that too. And so what you're getting is a really rancid fish oil that if you guys have ever taken fish oil that's not from a good company, you're going to burp it up.
And it smells. And yeah.
And who wants to smell like fish, right? Especially if you take it in the morning and go to work and you're like, oh, great. Okay.
Well, and it's harder for your body to detoxify from. And, through this episode, all the episodes with you, we're talking about what's the most bioavailable, like the most easy to absorb version of a nutrient to take. You want to take the triglyceride form. It's just easier for your body to absorb and assimilate.
It's the form that the fish gave us, right? It's the form that the fish gave us. And so we process it back to the exact same form that came out of the body. So there's alcohol free, our product is. And then Dr. Gray mentioned we test. The FDA requires parts per million. That's what they require for certificate analysis. We actually submit ours to another third-party company called Eurofins that tests down to parts per billion for us. And so we go multiple factors of 10 even further just to guarantee, because we know we're using these potentially with sensitive patients who can't have any capacity, any of these heavy metals, pesticides, plastics, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on to G. So we have a couple different gut health blended products. One's called Gut Shield and the other's GI Support. So we'll kind of start with Gut Shield, which is the kind of the smaller jug. If you guys have done the gut healing protocol with us here, it comes in chocolate and vanilla. It again contains glutamine, which I've mentioned is the most important non-essential amino acid for gut healing, and a little bit of zinc, which is a top mineral for gut healing. It also has N-acetyl D-glucosamine and then aloe vera, which I've mentioned previously. But the N-acetyl D-glucosamine is a mucin precursor, which means it increases the production of mucus in the gut tract. And so this is beneficial in coating the tract and protecting it. And it also has deglycerized licorice, which is a form of licorice that doesn't contain glycyrrhizin, which can raise blood pressure. But licorice, as you probably know, is great for treating ulcers. It's a demulcent. It soothes irritated tissue. Was licorice? Maybe not. Licorice was probably not in the bladder support product. I think that's marshmallow root, but kind of similar mechanism of action. It's antispasmodic, anti-inflammatory, and anti-allergenic. So this product is great also to put in your coffee. Eric will put a little scoop of this in his coffee from time to time. This is great.
There's absolutely ortho reps I'm aware of who use the vanilla flavor as a coffee creamer. It dissolves really effectively. And that glutamine that you talked about is kind of the star of the show on this one. It's a really comprehensive blend. But that glutamine, for those who aren't aware, we've got these cells that line our GI tract that protect us. Our gut is an interface with the outside world. We put food in our system. It doesn't go in there until we absorb it, right? And so we want to make sure that those cells are really tightly packed together and able to actually choose what's going in and out. Selectively permeable is the term that we use, right? And so we want to make sure intestinal permeability is good. We probably heard the term leaky gut, right? And so that glutamate, what it is, it's that primary fuel, or it's the glutamine, excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, glutamine, very different. But glutamine is that primary fuel source for those enterocytes, which are those cells, to rebuild themselves. It's like if we had a castle and that castle got attacked and then a cannon shot a big hole into it and things were able to get through, enemies were able to get through, whatever. We want to be able to take bricks and concrete and all that stuff and repair it. The bricks and the concrete and the steel rebar and all that stuff, that's what this product is it's able to actually go in and repair it. And your body's going to use it to start rebuilding it. Yeah.
Well, a lot of times we'll tell patients to take this, not forever, although they can if they like it. Sometimes it just helps with constipation because of the aloe
Good coffee
and the
creamer.
ingredients. Yeah, there we go. Otherwise, we just say take it for 3 months consistently when on the gut healing protocol. And this, like you said, glutamine is kind of the star of that show, and that this product has a higher dose of glutamine than our GI Support, which is more of a larger product, comes in a larger jug. I think that comes in vanilla, chai, chocolate mint, and strawberry. This has similar ingredients, but it actually has protein, so it can be a meal replacement. It has protein powder. It also has anti-inflammatories like turmeric, and it has prebiotics, things like arabinogalactans, and it has antioxidants. So that also packs a huge punch. But it's lower in glutamine. So many times patients will combine, they'll do 1 scoop of the little jug, the GI Support, and 1 scoop of the larger jug in the morning as a meal replacement through those three months as they're focusing on gut healing. So those are very popular. Those are our absolute go-tos when patients have food sensitivities and we're taking them off foods, which is important, but we also want to expedite the healing process of that leaky gut, you said, by using those products in combination with the diet changes.
And for GI Support, if you just have overall high inflammation, even I've had practitioners who use it for joint pain or other issues. If you just know that you have a lot of inflammation going on, if we can knock that out at the site of the gut, will pay dividends to the whole body. Absolutely. There's 8 anti-inflammatories in that product. They're potent and they're ready to do work as soon as we take it. Absolutely.
And I will mention, if you've had Crohn's or colitis, I have a lot of patients recently who've had lymphocytic colitis. This is a wonderful product for those. I think this was created for those patients specifically.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to glutathione.
Still in G's.
Still in G's. So glutathione is the most important antioxidant. Well, one of the most important antioxidants in the body. It's also great for detoxification. It's also something that we can test on a nutritional evaluation level. On a nutritional evaluation, levels of which are usually very low. So when we're under oxidative stress, when we're detoxing, our body uses up a lot of this master antioxidant glutathione. And so many patients need to supplement with it. I put many patients who have had elevated liver function tests on this. All my patients who are detoxifying from mold are on this. It's a very important antioxidant. So what else do you want to share about
Yeah.
glutathione?
From an oral standpoint, from a supplement standpoint, we call this the master antioxidant. If we can get this in to our system, this is going to go scavenge free radicals, which is oxidative stress, almost more effectively than anything else that we have in our body, right? And so why we're talking about oxidative stress, I know we mentioned that a couple of times. What that is it's unbound electrons, free radicals that are going around and they damage things, right? And so we can see this, with our skin, right? If we're drinking, smoking, long-term UV radiation exposure, all of that increases oxidative stress. High exercise even too. Sorry guys, if you're marathon runners, increases a really high amount of oxidative stress. And so what that does is it can damage our collagen, right? It can damage the collagen in our skin, which is going to increase the presence of things like wrinkles, right? Which a lot of people don't want. And so if you can visibly see that is what oxidative stress does to our skin. Imagine what it can do to our cells. Imagine what it can do to our liver. Imagine what it can do to our internal organs and our tissues, right? It can age them, increase them. It can damage these things that hold them together. And so when we can introduce antioxidants into our system, like we'll talk about with mitochondrial complex, if we can bring a lot of antioxidants in on a daily basis, this is something that can slow down the aging process, can help with detoxification, and overall improve our longevity, which I've heard around here we're really interested in longevity.
Love it. Absolutely. Love it. Love it. I'll take a break just for a second here. I have a 12:30 and I feel like, which I would like to go to 12:30 if you have another 20 minutes.
I'll keep going. I'll keep pushing.
And then, I'm literally halfway through. We're not even halfway through the alphabet. So this is
Do you
taking
wanna-
longer than anticipated. So we should probably reschedule another to get through the rest, if that's okay with you.
Are
But
there any that you maybe want to cut out? Like maybe
no, I want to keep going.
Yeah.
This is going to be awesome because I'll get like 3 or 4 episodes. So let's keep going until whatever 12:25, 12:30, and then I got a phone call, and if that's okay with you,
you do your thing. Yeah.
Okay. I just got to
This
write
is
down
honestly, I'm impressed that we're.
I know.
we're just
Well, I'm
having a
getting tired.
conversation
I'm
about
like,
something
oh my
that's really
gosh.
good.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm getting tired.
If you need me to talk more, I can. I'm letting you kind of do your thing first, where you're kind of, this is what I see, this is what I do. I can step in some more if you want, but
I like what we're doing. So
okay, cool. Right.
Okay, let's go on to H. So I put 5-HTP or 5-hydroxytryptophan under H. I just feel like that was appropriate.
Yeah.
So this is an amino acid that plays an important role in the production of serotonin. So serotonin is a healthy neurotransmitter, makes us just feel great, happy, whatnot. This actually can cross the blood-brain barrier, increasing our production of serotonin. So a lot of the SSRI medications that are available do not increase your production. They only help you recirculate what you're already making, which is different. And I will say, if you're on a medication, obviously talk to your doctor before adding the supplement. But with many of my patients, I do use this in combination with an SSRI because I feel like it makes the medication work better. Although obviously the preferred option would be to not have to take the SSRI and just be able to use 5-HTP. I've used this on and off for years. It's great for sleep because, again, it will convert to serotonin, which converts to melatonin. So great for stress and anxiety. Sometimes I'll take this once this week during the day. I was like, oh my gosh, this day is stressful. I just need to take a little bit. It didn't make me tired during the day. It just kind of calmed me down a little bit. But for some patients, right, when I'm already getting like tired at night, it just helps me kind of get to sleep. So it's something that can be pulsed throughout the day. It's unfortunately, unlike an SSRI, it's not going to last you 24 hours. It's something that has a shorter half-life. So many patients do have to pulse it many times a day. But I will say many of my patients can get by, again, not taking medications by using 5-HTP if they really need help with serotonin, which is also something that we can test for at the clinic. So when I think of 5-HTP, I think of mood, I think of anxiety, depression, and sleep. Those are the main things that it can help.
Serotonin is that feel-good neurotransmitter. That's something that if you've got good levels of it, it's a mood regulator. We feel pretty good, right? And if those pools get depleted or they're thrown off or they're just not doing what they're supposed to, this is a scenario where we can end up with mood dysregulation, where we're talking about anxiety, depression, and a lot of these things that affect a lot of people, right? And so with 5-HTP specifically, it's a direct precursor to serotonin. Like you said, those drugs that go in, SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, they prevent the serotonin that's being released in your brain from going back into the cells. And so they hold onto it in what's called the synapse. And they just hold it there. They just synthetically grab onto it and they hold it there and they don't let it go anywhere. And so you will feel like you have more serotonin, but it's kind of a what came first, chicken or the egg type thing. Are we making more serotonin or are we just holding it and what's actually happening, right? Are we resolving the issue or are we just making the issue go away, right? And so 5-HTP can be used to kind of increase the input so we make more output. right? And so this is, like I said, or like you have said, it's can be used if we talk to our provider and we're already on that medication, for someone who maybe has questions and they're kind of considering, do I go talk to someone or do I actually get support for this? This is a way that we can start. We can try this first. And then if we're having sleep issues, serotonin does get turned into melatonin via calcium. It's coming back up again in the
Oh, so we
pineal.
need that calcium.
Yeah, we do need a little calcium. Yeah. The serotonin turns into melatonin via calcium in the pineal gland. And so our body is going to use that to start cranking out some more melatonin as needed. And so if you take 5-HTP, potentially could it make you feel a little sleepy? Maybe, but oftentimes not, because that use of that neurotransmitter is going to still follow, hopefully, knock on wood, our diurnal cortisol pattern. So as cortisol goes down, as our stress goes down, our body will start making and releasing more melatonin. So it's a great option. I've got story after story after story after story of providers trying this or some comprehensive support product with this in it, in addition to things like L-theanine, which we will get to, as really, really, really safe mood regulators. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay,
Yep.
moving on, still in the H's, to a product called hair and nail support.
Yep.
So this actually has some betaine HCl again, which we've mentioned, has some saw palmetto in it. It has some MSM. I think those are the main ingredients, but what I tell patients is this has some ingredients, some nutrients to help you grow hair, but also to minimize hair loss. And that the saw palmetto in here will help block testosterone from converting to DHT. So block some of that androgenic hair loss. So I would say a comparable product for males is a product which we'll get to in the P's called Prostratrol Forte. But for females, if they have PCOS, if they're having hair loss, whatnot, acne, oily skin, many times this can help block those androgens, which in turn helps with hair and nail support, which is why we call it hair and nail support.
Yeah, and we talk about with some other disease states, and I'm not saying that hair loss is a disease state, but we talk about with some other things, talking about the environment, the genetics, and the trigger, right? We obviously have to have some sort of genetic component there, but the trigger for some men can be a scenario where we've got this 5-DHT in our system at elevated levels. It's 7 times more androgenic than just straight testosterone, which we know we like, and testosterone, as we know, is pretty androgenic by itself, right? So if we get a lot of this, can it increase our facial hair? Can it make us have, big, thick, bushy beards and stuff? Yes, but it can also increase body hair and cause things like the hair on the top of our head to start to go away, right? And so you're absolutely right. It's going to help us increase those nails, but then also from a little kind of a very gentle hormonal support aspect, prevent that conversion, or at least modulate that conversion, so we're able to effectively manage those hormones. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that product. Okay, going on to immune support, which we did heavily break down in, I think, a couple past episodes with you as well, but I'll mention it here just since we're kind of going through. So this was a product with the past virus, that issue, I guess we had.
Something that happened.
Yeah, something. I never know how to.
About.
Never know what to say on podcast. We heavily advocated for use of this product. So it was great timing when this was launched. This includes I think 5 main ingredients that I already forgot what it's called. We'll have to edit this out. What is it called?
Yeah. Also, what we don't say is that it's for COVID. That's
that's why I'm. Yep.
That's the one that the FDA looks for. That you can say all day long, this helps you better fill up your gas tank for viral challenges. You can say that all day long. Yeah.
That's why I was trying to not say COVID.
You can even borderline say cold and flu. They were, I don't know if they do it much anymore, but they were looking for people saying literally COVID-19. Like if you're saying that in a product, they were going to hunt you down.
No, so that I don't want to say that. Maybe I'll start over with what I'll say about immune support. I was trying to think of America's Frontline Doctors.
Yeah,
that's what I was trying to think of. I couldn't think of the name.
Recommended by the Institute for Functional Medicine or America's Frontline Doctors for preparing the body to best handle viral challenges.
You want to say that?
Yeah.
Okay. So next product is immune support, which we talked a lot about in past episodes, but I didn't want to not mention it here. So I'm going to give you the mic. I'm getting a little cotton mouth. So you tell me a little bit about
you're good. Yeah.
immune support and what it contains.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, we've been going straight since we started recording like 2 hours ago. So what immune support is for is it is the top nutrients that have been considered safe for pregnancy, but it's the top nutrients that are recommended by either America's Frontline Doctors or the Institute for Functional Medicine for basically refilling our metabolic reserves, which is basically prepping our body for viral challenges. And so whether it be you come in contact with a virus or come in contact with something that challenges our immune system, wherever, doesn't matter, right? We want to make sure Like if I got to get in my car and I got to go do a long drive, I want to make sure I got gas in my gas tank before I go, right? It's the same concept with our immune system. Is our immune system, in order to make immune cells, to make antibodies to a virus, it needs micronutrients. A lot of people don't realize that, is it needs micronutrients in order to create the response. And so what this is it's the top nutrients that providers are recommending and have been recommending to prepare the body to best handle chronic challenges, or whether it be viral challenges, or just keep the immune system at tip-top shape.
Which includes 600 milligrams of vitamin C, 2,500 IUs of D3, 25 milligrams of the chelated zinc, right back to those amino acid chelated minerals, 600 milligrams of N-acetylcysteine, which we'll get to in the ends, but also is a precursor to glutathione, which we have mentioned, and then 250 milligrams of quercetin in 2 capsules. So it's a great product, especially come flu season, right? This fall, great product for patients to take. And I like that you did say it's safe for pregnancy and nursing. That's how it was formulated. So I love this product. Okay,
immune
great.
support for everyone. That's what we say.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay, let's talk about iron. So I previously mentioned iron. As far as the iron we have should be less constipating. This is similarly in the amino acid chelated form. But a lot of my patients, especially women who are bleeding heavily, are very low on iron. They're very anemic, and you need iron. It's one of the most abundant minerals on earth. So it's great for oxygen transport in the body. It's just heavily needed amongst a lot of my patients. So our iron comes in this bisglycinate form, and it's 29 milligrams. It's usually very well tolerated. It's just something that we recommend to patients who are low in iron. Yeah.
Same thing we talked about with minerals before, if you guys remember. It may be in a different episode at this point, but the same thing that we talked about before, where everything's chelated, it's bound in that amino acid, our body sees it, pulls it in. Iron actually has the opposite effect of magnesium, where it can cause constipation, which is not great, because if we think about people who are requiring iron, it could be people who are already having cramping abdominally, or patients who are pregnant. Right. And so we want to avoid any unnecessary abdominal pain, because that can be a very concerning, but also be uncomfortable, as we have a lot of other stuff going on. So,
Yay. Okay. Moving on to J's. So joint support. So a lot of my patients ask about a glucosamine chondroitin product. Oh, shoot. Is this the right product? Yes, it is. Okay. I gotta have to edit that too. Sorry, I got to write down these times so I know
where to put the team to work. Well,
it's going to be me probably.
Oh, really?
So moving on to,
you do the editing and stuff too?
Well, I have to do the video editing because our podcast production team won't do it. So it's like, if I have to do it, then I might as well just tell them where to do the editing for the audio.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. Okay, so moving on to J's. So joint support is also a popular product. A lot of my patients always ask about glucosamine chondroitin, especially if they're aging and they feel like they have some arthritis. So this is the product for that. So just to kind of remind you, cartilage is our spongy tissue that helps to cushion your joints. And due to lifestyle factors, like if you have been an athlete prior in life, just high impact movement and exercise, this cartilage can begin to degrade, which leads to the joint pain, stiffness, and can drive inflammation in our joints. So one way we can help stop and reverse this is by supplementing with precursors to give our body building blocks to make more cartilage naturally. So joint support has, again, the glucosamine and chondroitin. It also has a little bit of vitamin C, just a little other cofactors. So this can be very helpful. I will say this is not a product that you take and you're just going to feel the benefit tomorrow. You need to take this for a couple months to really see benefit.
Yeah, so there's 3 legs of the stool as it relates to making cartilage in the body. You need all 3. If you try to sit on a stool with 2 legs, don't do it.
Won't work.
Yeah, it won't work, right? And so 2 of those legs that we don't get a lot of through our diet, or we need in higher concentrations, are going to be chondroitin and glucosamine. The third one's called keratin sulfate. And so the 2 that we focus on are the glucosamine and the chondroitin, because those are the 2 we need in higher concentrations and get less of through our diet. And so when we have all 3 of those together, when they're kind of all hanging out, we have an effective stool where our body's going to create more cartilage, right? And that cartilage, like Dr. Gray had said, if you're an athlete like myself, I play rugby, I play football, I wrestle, I've done all sorts of dumb stuff with my joints. This is something that, is degraded over time. And just as we age, I hate to say it, I know no one wants to hear that, but as we age, that cartilage over years and years and years of getting up, sitting down, walking around, doing all just everyday stuff, it will go away. It's just not fun. And that can directly lead to joint pain. And there is some lag time. That's really important. I want to emphasize that. This is not something you take today and you'll feel better tomorrow, or take today and feel better even next week, right? Collagen is a great add-on if someone's saying, hey, I want to really improve the soft tissue that surrounds the joints, but then collagen will also repair cartilage directly as well. And in fact, sometimes it works a little bit quicker. But glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate are great add-ons for a long-term option. If we know that we're having cartilage degradation, if we know our joints just don't move the way they used to, it's a great option to add on for long-term support.
Awesome. Yay. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to K, which we mentioned a little bit about in regards to bone density. So K2 is very important to take with D3. So again, we have those options available for our patients.
Yep.
We have vitamin D with or without the K2. But again, why that's so important is it's the usher that directs calcium into the bone matrix, so that you're not going to hopefully have any sort of side effects of taking the vitamin D or of having higher calcium levels. It should actually lower the calcium level. That should get the calcium into where it needs to be deposited. So some patients will take K2 separately. I have some patients just from a cardiovascular standpoint that they take higher dose K2 because they really want to minimize any sort of plaque formation in the body. But again, we carry it separately, but also in combination with D3.
Yeah, the higher your vitamin D levels, which is the goal, that's a good thing. 2 thumbs up. I know you guys can't see it, but 2 thumbs up. Higher vitamin D is better overall. That increases the amount of calcium that will come in through your GI tract. So the more vitamin D you have, it's kind of an unfortunate paradox, but the more vitamin D you have, the more calcium gets in your system. And we want to make sure that it's going where it's supposed to and staying out of where it's not, right? Where we want the calcium is in our bones. That's where we want calcium to go. Where we want it to stay out of is our arteries. Why? Because it increases arterial calcification. And arterial calcification, as you guys are probably very aware, not good. And so what we're doing with vitamin K is we're activating different factors that make sure that the calcium is being grabbed and pulled into bone and staying out of it. It will protect those fatty deposits in our arteries, which aren't good to begin with, but it'll help shield them from that extra calcium that's in our system. Super, super, super important. Great research for cardiovascular function. Yeah.
Yes, very cardioprotective. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, we go into my favorite product, which is L-theanine, which I mentioned in the opening of the episode.
Yep.
Is
I've got my
in
bottle right
Adrenal
here.
Calm.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. I love the stuff.
Yep.
I usually take that for interviews and whatnot. Or just daily if I'm having stress.
Yeah.
So this is naturally occurring a unique amino acid found from green tea. It's been shown to reduce stress and promote relaxation without causing drowsiness. It can help to boost GABA. So it can help induce kind of calming brain waves. It's something that even athletes I've seen take in combination with caffeine and various, products for, pre-workout, whatnot. It improves focus, attention, learning, performance. Great for sleep. I have patients that wake up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep. This is something that can work very quick. So it literally can help 15, 20 minutes, help you get back to sleep. And it's not going to cause the grogginess that melatonin can cause in the morning. For some people, it can help support blood pressure if it's kind of calming them down, if stress is what's driving the blood pressure. So I love it. I love L-theanine. It's in my purse at all times. If you find me and you need some, I'll have some for you. So, and it's even safe to take in pregnancy. I've had some patients who had insomnia in pregnancy and they could take L-theanine.
Yeah, this is something, I don't know if you can tell because Dr. Gray's got her purse at all times, and I'm sitting here at my desk right now with a bottle of L-theanine right next to my glass of water. This is something that is super, super, super important, right? And this is something, if you were to ask me what's one thing that anyone could take to reduce stress and you don't have to worry about contraindications with an SSRI, an antidepressant, anything like that, this is super safe, super benign. L-theanine goes right into your system and it triggers the release of GABA. So you get more GABA that's going directly into your brain. It actually blocks up, I misspoke and I said glutamate earlier. It blocks the glutamate receptors. So it actually blocks up the ability of those excitatory neurotransmitters to actually create excitatory signals in your brain. So it does two things. It blocks up the ability of the excitement and it actually increases the amount of calm. And it's super, super, super safe. It's part of the reason why people love drinking green tea and have for thousands and thousands of years. You get that caffeine, which for a lot of people, I know Dr. Gray's a little sensitive to caffeine sometimes, can cause some jitters and can cause some heart palpitations, some other things, trigger our nervous system in ways we don't want. L-theanine counterbalances that. And so it's a great, 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 super safe, like I said, add-on to almost any protocol. It's something I take. I know Dr. Gray takes it. A lot of people take it. And it's a great way if you're, like I said, if you ask me, what's the number one thing people could take just to calm down, to help reduce stress? Super, super, super safe. Yeah.
L-theanine. And I will also say, just because I've had a couple patients take one and say, well, that didn't do much. Well, you might need to take two or
Yeah.
three or
Yeah.
four. Like I have some
And you
patients who
can.
take two or
Yeah.
three times a day. So yes,
Yeah.
experiment with this. Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. Yay. Okay. Speaking of heart palpitations, one thing that can help them is magnesium. So we will move on to M's here and talk a little bit about magnesium, since we have, again, already mentioned the importance of amino acid chelated
Yep.
minerals.
Yep.
Our magnesium is also amino acid chelated. And
Yeah.
magnesium
Yeah.
is important because of caffeine, which we just mentioned, stress, our deficient food sources also rob us of magnesium, and magnesium is important for usually or I hear other people say on podcasts, 300 different enzymatic processes in the body. And that really is true. Yeah. It can calm your mind and ease your nerves at night to help you sleep. It's great for anxiety and PMS and headaches. I do give this to patients who have muscle cramps. We also mentioned already that it's good for bone density, helps with vitamin D absorption. So magnesium is, I think, pretty much good for everyone as well. Very few patients can't tolerate it. It's just you want to take the right form so you don't get diarrhea.
Yeah. This is everything we just talked about the minerals. I know it's come up a couple times, is especially true for magnesium. This is one of those, if you are deficient in magnesium, this is one of those you will notice a difference pretty quickly. In fact, there's a friend I have in Texas where I was able to get a bottle of orthomolecular magnesium to, and he said he had one of the best night's sleep he's ever had that first night that he took it. It's one of those, if it's over 80% of your body's enzymatic processes, I've heard the same number, the 300 enzymatic processes, 80% of the US population, over 80% is deficient. This is one of the most important minerals we can talk about. A lot of my offices, I know you talk about this too, Dr. Gray, talk about foundational 5 products: a multivitamin, a fish oil, a probiotic, a vitamin D, and a magnesium. Magnesium is oftentimes overlooked, and it's something that is super, super, super safe and really, really beneficial, again, for blood pressure, neurotransmitters, for muscle aches, cramping, recovery. There's a lot of things we can talk about with this. Bone health. I can make a long, long laundry list of direct biological processes that you guys listening to this will benefit from by adding on magnesium. 100%.
Everybody needs it. Kind of like fish oil and vitamin D and those foundational products you just mentioned. Yay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Totally agreed.